gezondheid-code. Gezondheid! How are you? Hi! It's almost New Year, Coda! Woo! Lucas is sleeping there on the couch because no one cares here in this household for New Year's. No. Super. Hello, Happy New Year, Happy 2018. I think I'm going to be uploading this video on Monday. Next year, it is next day in the next year. Today is New Year's Eve, and for some reason I decided it was a good idea to wait with filming this video until today, while my neighbors are firing fireworks outside. My schedule is just awesome. But anyway, I wanted to make a sort of wrap up of the end of the year of my fireworks. Well, obviously not a list of fireworks, but a list of the books that I really enjoyed reading in 2017, the last year. And to my disappointment, I found that the books that I've been reading last year, weren't really the books that I wanted to read. And let me explain what I mean. Because what you first need to know is that there is a website called Goodreads. You maybe already have heard of it or you are using it if you, like me, love to read books. And it is a website on which you can find books, you can keep record of the books that you have read and when you have read them, and you can actually challenge yourself with the reading challenge. And I've been doing the challenge now for 3 years. I started in 2015, and then I challenged myself to read 50 books, which I did. I managed to read 53 books that year, and I started later. I started somewhere in April or something. And last year I challenged myself to read 80 books, and I managed to make it to 83 or 87, something like that. It doesn't really matter, I made it. And I easily got there with some books that are like the ones that I read this year that I know that I can finish within 2 hours. And I said to myself, I am going to be going back to school this year and I'm going to be busy with work, so I'm not going to really challenge myself and read 100 books like I originally planned to do for 2017. But I adjusted that to 50 because I knew that I was probably going to be very busy. And I barely made it. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably will have seen some of my tweets saying I still have 7 days left and I still had to read 50 books. And it really felt like it was something I had to do because I wanted to read, because I know that I can easily read 50 books a year. I can easily do it even when I'm busy, but I just didn't do it this year. I didn't feel the drive to do it. And the books that I read, like I said at the beginning of this video, they were books that I know I could easily finish within 2 hours. They are books that I really enjoy, but I didn't read them because I wanted to read them or because I knew that I would enjoy them. I read them because I wanted to get to my goal and because I know that they were easily going to be read within a few hours and that I would get to my goal the easiest way possible. And so I feel like I kind of cheated my way through this year. So when I originally planned to do a top 5 list of the books that I really enjoyed reading this year. But I was going through all the books on my Goodreads page that I read this year, and I was like, I'm having trouble to get to 5 books that I really, really enjoyed or that I loved reading. I actually only managed to find 2 stories that I still remember and that really had an impact on me. And that just made me realize that I have to do something different next year. Because I read, because I really love reading. And because I love the stories, they really draw me in, and I like to imagine that I'm living in that world, and I love to imagine that I'm the character. And I kind of stole that for myself this year, because I didn't really put in the effort. So I am going to tell you about my top 2, because that's as far as I'm going to get with the books that I read this year. But at the end of this video, I'm also going to tell you about the reading challenge for 2018. Then we're going to do that I want to do. But anyway, let's start with my top 2, because on the number 2 spot is the book which I have here buried underneath all the things. I really need to clean my table. It's the Skullduggery Pleasant series, and I chose the first book because the first book I first read when I was about 14 or 15 years old, and I got a copy in the Dutch library here in Holland, which is obvious, but I think I read the Dutch copy back then. No, I did read the English one, and I thought that I was a little bit naughty for reading it because I was 14 and I was scared that my mum was going to think that I picked up a bad book because there was a skull on the front page, and that's why I chose it originally. And I didn't really understand English at that point. I was good at it, but I like to pretend that I was a lot better at it than I really was. It was pretty awful really, so I didn't really get a lot of the story. But still, it stuck with me for a few years, and I knew that I wanted to reread it. And then this year, at the beginning, I found some copies, not this one, but I found some copies of the 3rd or 5th book in the series, and I picked it up. And then I just had to get the first one, and ever since I read this, and I read the other parts in this story, I just fell in love. It is such a wonderful series, and I don't know, the way Landy there is something about the writing that just draws you in, and it feels like you are there with them. And Valkyrie is she's your typical teenager, but with magic, which isn't really typical. But there's a whole world around us going on that we don't know about, which if you read Skullduggery Pleasant, you know there is. And I don't know, the thing that I like most about the series is the relationship between Skullduggery and Valkyrie. And I can't wait for the next book to come out next year, 2018. If you're seeing this on Monday, which you will, because I'm not going to upload it until Monday, it is going to be out this year in June, I think, the 1st of June. And it's called Midnight. And I'm so excited for that last book. I'm now at the 7th book, and I still have to read the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th book, and then I have to wait for Midnight to come out. So those are books that I'm definitely going to read and finish for the reading challenge for next year. But yeah, anyway, on to the first book on this list. I really feel bad that there are only 2, but just keep going, I guess. The one on my top, on the number 1 spot on this list is a book that I read this week, because it was one of the... Are you okay? Sorry, my dog is acting crazy. Hi! It is a book that I read this week. It was part of 10 books that I still needed to read within a few days. And I picked this book, just like the others, because it didn't have a lot of pages. So I just felt like I need to get some short books that I can finish very quickly. This was one of them. And I didn't expect to like it, but I fell in love with the story. Actually, if I had to make a top 5 of my all-time favorite books, or a top 10, it would come in pretty high. It is Tree and Leaf of J.R.R. Tolkien. Also the writer of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings series, if you didn't know, which you should be ashamed of if you don't know. And there are 3 stories in this one. I'm going to butcher this name, sorry. Bifopia, and The Homecoming of Beowulf, and Tree and Leaf. Or Leaf by Nickel, I was right. And there's just something so cute and endearing about the story. It is a story, Tree and Leaf is about a story about a painter who lives in a small village, I think, not in a city. And he lives away from the city, so he lives in his own house and he has only one neighbor. And he likes to paint. He normally paints a lot of leaves, and this time he is trying to create a whole tree with also with leaves, but really intricate and special leaves. Not just leaves that are drawn on, but every single one of them gets attention and every single one of them is painted beautifully. But as he is painting the tree and the leaves, he also imagines, I think it's a lake nearby or a forest somewhere in the distance, and mountains and the sun coming up behind the mountains. And then throughout the story there is the sense of Nigel saying, there's an appointment that I have, or there's somewhere I have to go, but he's just kind of putting it off because of the painting. And when he finally goes on the journey, then we discover that Nigel actually died, or it's his afterlife, and somewhere in that afterlife it's decided that he gets to get to the next point, and then because he didn't get to finish his painting before he died, the people in the afterlife, persons, they are just person 1 or 2, they decide to have him live in his painting so that he gets to finish it. And when his neighbor dies, he gets to spend his time with Nigel, and they get to work on the garden together. And finally Nigel gets to move on and stuff like that. But there was something so beautiful in the way the afterlife was created, because I, not maybe you understood if you read it, but I didn't get that he died at first. It was only when they started talking about people of person number 1, person number 2, and that maybe had to move on, that I was like, wait, Nigel died. But how did he know that he had to go somewhere? I mean, it almost feels like, after reading the full story, that he almost knew that he was going to die soon, or at some, well, everyone knows that they're going to die at some point, but you know what I mean, that he was going to die somewhere in this story. And it was very interesting, and there was something that he kind of just accepted it, even if he didn't know. He didn't appear to me, at least, that he was angry or that he was so confused that he was starting to get fearful, or there was just something very calm and pleasant about the story, a story about death. And that's why it's on the first spot in this top 2 list. So that were the 2 stories, the 2 books that really grabbed me this year, and that I'm really thankful for that I read this year. But I want to have more books like that for the next year, and that is where my 2018 reading challenge comes in. So what my plan is that this time, unlike this year, I am going to challenge myself to read 100 books in 2018. And that means that I have to read something like 2 books a week, but I can read fast and I know that I can do it. So if you have seen the video of my home tour, you have seen the bookshelves, and you know that I've more than plenty enough books. I don't have to buy new books to read 100 books. There are more than 100 books that I still have to read on my shelves. So that's not going to be a problem. And a lot of those books are really good books that have a powerful message behind them, but I just haven't read them yet. So this is the year that is going to happen. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to buy any more books, but you get the idea. And I think that if I challenge myself to read 100 books, that I really have something that I have to work hard for, because I know that I can easily get to 50, but 83 in 2016 was pretty hard. It was a real challenge, but I made it to 83. So that's why I'm going for 100 this year. And this year I'm going to read good books and not books that I know that I can read fast. So maybe I won't make it, but in the end I hope that I'm going to come across some really cool books, and that's what's important to me for the reading challenge. this was the video for the first video of this new year. I hope you had a great New Year's Eve and that you got to spend it with a lot of your loved ones. Anyway, let me know what your reading challenge, if you are doing one, is going to be in the comments down below. And I hope to see you in the next video.